So Samuel, welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. Great to have you here, man.
It's a pleasure to be back, Jim. It's great to hear all about the business building warriors and all what you're doing. I've been following your podcast closely, and there's so many real life cases of success using your proven Amazon course formula.
Yeah, well, thanks for the shout out, man. Certainly appreciate that. A good way to get the episode rolling. A little shout out for the pack course. We're here today to talk about repricers, and you guys are the company that I use personally in my account to reprice for our Replens business. And I want to spend some time diving into the BQool story. So just take it away. Tell me a little bit about your company, and let's get into who needs a repricer and even do some training. So let's go, man.
Absolutely, Jim. So BQool was founded in 2011. So we've been in the business for more than 10 years. And we're also in the invite-only Amazon Marketplace Development Council. So we're on top of all the new updates, including there's some new APIs that are coming soon for the people who aren't familiar yet by July 31st. And we've actually been a repricer for over 100,000 sellers on Amazon. And we collect billions of data, different data points, especially using AI. And we have repriced billions of dollars. And the name BQool, what does it stand for, right? It stands for Business Cool Solutions, for people to scale up their business and to help them streamline their Amazon business so they can grow and get to the next level.
Well, I'm sure there's people who didn't know that, myself included. I couldn't have given that eloquent of an answer as much as we've worked together. But at least maybe we can start pronouncing it correctly, those of us who say it wrong in our head. So be cool. I love it. All right. So, not everyone needs a repricer. So I think a good thing we might do to frame the conversation today is this is one of those rare episodes that may not be for everybody, although I'd argue that eventually you will need a repricer if you're growing and scaling, especially if you're going through the training the way that we teach Amazon sellers in our community. We start 99% of our students with the Replens model. And we'll dig into that. But why do you need a repricer? What does it do for you? Just, hit us with the basics before we get too deep into this.
This might be a refresher for some of the audience here, but the way that Amazon operates is you have one ASIN and there could be many, many sellers on the same ASIN selling the same products. And that's how Amazon is organized. So there's a buy box there in every listing or ASIN. And the lion's share of the sales, maybe 85% comes from that buy box. So there's all these different variables that goes in when you're winning the buy box. It could be your fulfillment type. It could be the shipping time that you have. It could also be the price as well. There's so many different factors. So it acts like a black box of, how do you win the buy box? But at BQool, we believe we've cracked the code. And we know that the most important factors are the fulfillment method, maybe the selling price, and also your shipping time as well. So those have the highest degree of impact when you're repricing. And we've taken all those considerations into our AI model to help you to get better buy box win rate, and as a result, get you more profits for your business.
That's a great recap. And not to dive into the weeds too soon, because I know you've got some great content and training for us here, but you just said one of the top 3 most important factors is shipping time. And I want to make sure I understand why you've included that in your list. Here's my understanding, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say there's 3 FBA sellers. There's one on the West Coast, one in Central United States, and one on the East Coast, and we're all priced exactly the same. And a customer near me in Central US is shopping for that ASIN. They're more likely to see me because I can ship it to them faster in the buy box. They're more likely to see me show up in the buy box. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying when you say the shipping time? Because with FBA, the only variable is how fast Amazon's going to ship it out of their warehouse. I don't control that because once it's in FBA, and we all know FBA wins the buy box more than merchant fulfill typically. So talk me through that. Am I wrong on any of that?
I actually agree with you. And the way that it works is, let's say there's all 3 of them are all FBA sellers. And then so when you're shipping the product, you can decide which Amazon warehouse you're shipping it to, or whether you want to ship part of it to this Amazon warehouse and part of it to another Amazon warehouse. So one of the concepts is whoever owns the buy box, it could be different. So maybe you're in Indiana And the person who's on the East Coast who has shipped it to a closer Amazon warehouse using FBA, of course, if given all things are the same, the price is the same, they have a faster shipping. Then Amazon will actually give that preference to that seller. But in most cases, right, there's other factors that comes into place as well, like the seller rating, for example. What's the positive? Like there's other more minor factors as well. So almost no two sellers are exactly the same. And
Sure.
from all the data that we've seen.
It's really hard to do apples to apples. And in my example too, I wanna make sure to clarify, I'm saying, mine's sitting in a warehouse in central United States at Amazon's warehouse. And, so we're all using FBA. Obviously, I can't control the product at that point. It's in Amazon's warehouse. But I was just curious if you guys had uncovered anything there. One of the tips we give people, I think if this will make sense to you, Samuel, is we say you want to be in, once you've got a winning ASIN, you want to be in a bunch of warehouses if possible, because you're more likely to win the buy box if you're in a warehouse near where the customer lives when they place their order. You're more likely to win the box. Have you guys seen that to be true?
We've seen in general terms that if you're an FBA seller, have a big leg up because you're using Amazon's warehouse, right? And then if you're an FBA seller, and let's say for this region, and you send the products to the regional Amazon hub for the warehouse, then in those cases, for those audience, you're more likely to appear in the buy box. Yeah, but every scenario is a little bit different. Yeah, so we've seen different scenarios, but as a general, if you're using FBA, you have a much higher chance. And the reason for that is because for Amazon, for them to ship the products from a warehouse that's closer, it's going to be lower cost to them than if they're shipping from somewhere that's far away, and also be faster as well. Their logistic costs would also be lower. Yeah. So for your advice of spreading out your products, definitely you can follow that. That you guys are the experts in running the Amazon business.
Yeah, yeah, we've certainly seen that. Some people have a winning ASIN and they send in 3 or 4 at a time to one warehouse, and they feel like, "Oh, it's dragging," and you can do some great stuff if you spread it out and send in 20 or 30 and spread them across multiple warehouses. So, not to dive us off into the weeds too much, but, I'm learning as we go here too, so I'm excited. So, just so we're super clear on exactly what a repricer is, I don't wanna lose anyone. Maybe we've been obvious at this point, but, okay, what is a repricer? What's it do exactly?
So what a repricer is, you're able to set the mins and max of your price. Yeah. So when you list a product in Amazon, there's your price. And a repricer, it changes the prices on your behalf. So it automates the repricing. So you need to set the min price and the max price and then set up a rule. And the min price and max price will act as safeguards to protect your profits. And then the price will fluctuate between those two limits according to the rules that you have set up. So it really depends what you want to do. You could have more sales or you could have higher profits. It's fine. It's trying to find the right balance in order to maximize the total net profits that you get into your account.
Beautiful. And not everyone needs this. And we're speaking to a lot of students who maybe are in that first month of learning the Replens system, and they've got 5 or 10 or 20 products that they found. Do they need a repricer, or at what point would you say? And I know how I answer this question, but I'm just curious, at what point do you guys typically recommend someone invest in a repricer like BQool?
We typically recommend people to invest in a repricer maybe when they have about 100 SKUs. Yeah, when
Yeah.
they're taking a lot of time, doing the manual adjustment themselves. And in some cases, from even 50 SKUs, if they have, high ticket items, if they have products that are higher costs. Because if you reprice, let's say you have 100 listings and you're able to get $1 more or $2 more from each of those listings per month, then it's going to cover your investment into a repricer over and over. And so then it makes business sense to get a repricer and you're able to get more profits. Yeah. And if it's lower, if you're just starting out, then you might wait a little bit and you might do the manual repricing yourself. But we've seen people, typically around 100 plus listings. And then, then you're able to monitor your price. You're able to keep track of your pricing. And it's going to save you valuable time, which you could be doing in other parts of your business, like sourcing, for example. At one point is, we hear a lot is you have a spending goal. So once you get to a certain amount, you got to spend money to keep on getting more products in. And then those products will sell. Let's say if they're doing replens, then there's a certain demand for those products. Yeah. So, typically we say, about 100 listings, and you can start out as 50. But typically, earlier you start, the earlier you know how to configure it, and you can also get more profits faster as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's about the answer we give too. Once you find yourself kind of inconveniently spending more time than you'd like to be setting your prices and monitoring everything, it's time to get a repricer. At about 100 ASINs is typically where that starts happening, is what we've noticed, 100 listings. So, all right, now we're going to start kind of getting into the, now that we've kind of covered the basics, what is it about BQool? You've got some different conditional settings and some rule-based settings, and let's start getting into a little bit of the training portion on your particular tool. And again, keeping in mind, we're going to do our best for those who just listen to this podcast. Like I said in the introduction, there are some visuals. But you don't have to have them, but they may be helpful. So we'll stick a link in the show notes so you can go catch this on YouTube if you want to see some of these. And if there's any like handouts or maybe some PDFs of the visuals you've used, maybe we'll make those available too, Samuel. But let's dive into, why do you need a BQool repricer as opposed to some of the other options? I know Amazon, for example, had its own repricing feature. I think they still have it, but it only goes one direction, down. I think if you're going to the price only drops, it never goes up. Well, the nice thing about using a smart repricer is it goes up when it can. So talk us through some of these features.
The difference for the BQool Repricer, like we have the traditional, which is the algorithmic rule base, and those rules, there's preset rules. So they've been preset to go up by a penny, to go down by a penny, or to match the buy box price. And then we have the AI repricer, which we introduced in the last podcast episode, which is episode 404 that we did together with you. And these will go using the AI, which will have machine learning. And then what we just launched just a few weeks ago is the conditional repricing. So with BQool, you could use all three types of different strategies: the rule base, the AI repricer, and also the conditional repricer, which I'm going to go and dive in more detail. And we're also one of the most affordable repricers with proven results. Some of the conditional repricing, some of our other repricer in the market charges 10 times as much for similar features. And we're also in the Amazon Marketplace Development Council, so it's very safe, and we're regularly audited by Amazon, and we continue to get updated. So there's going to be a lot less glitches when you're using our repricer. So there's difference, and I can go in and I can show you just what are some of the differences between rule base, between AI, and also the conditional repricing.
Yeah, let's try to nail down, hit some of the highlights on the three different strategies and who might consider them. Yeah, let's dive in. This is good stuff for a lot of listeners today. So yeah, you're going to start off with rule based, I assume.
Yes. So I'm going to start out with rule base, and I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to just talk through. I'm going to be as descriptive as possible whenever I can, and let me just show you guys. So once I get into the Repricing Central dashboard, you're actually able to compare the different rules depending on the AI powered, the rule base, or the conditional repricing. So you can compare the results, you compare the buy box win percentages of those, and also the number of orders that you're getting as well. And then so it's under the repricing rules tab. And when I click on the repricing rule tab, then I'm going to log in here, and typically it will bring you to this interface where we have the AI powered on the left hand side, we have the rule based, and then the conditional repricing.
Which are the three different approaches. Yeah, those are the three that we're going to talk about today. Rule based, AI, and conditional. The three different strategies. Okay, and
Yes.
right now we're talking about rule based.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, Jim, is with role based and AI, it would slowly get into conditional repricing because that's like the next level. So typically people start with rule based, and here you might target the lowest price, you might target the lowest FBA price. And for rule based, the main difference is you can select who you want to compete against, who do you want to exclude. You could also decide what happens when you get the buy box, but you got to decide that yourself. You got to add a penny, remove a penny. Who are you competing against? Let's say you're competing against Amazon. Typically, you might go down maybe 3%. So you could do those settings in there. And then what happens when you stay in the buy box? Like once you get the buy box, what happens? Do you raise the price? Do you lower the price? What happens next? And this is typical if you know your competitors very, very well, and you might, know some of the competitors well, but there's so many different products once you get to a certain level, and you might not know each of the competitors that well. And then so the main difference for rule base is it's a lot more manual. You have to select who the competitors are and exactly how much do you go up by and go down by to get the buy box. And this is all using your human knowledge, like using manual knowledge. So you got to set those up. And there's different preset rules here. And typically you see some of the other, a lot of people, they claim they have AI, but what is AI, right? So this is rule based. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about AI. And we talked a little bit about this in our last episode. But for AI, it's much easier. You don't need to choose who your competitors are. You don't need to, choose what amount you go up by or down by. There's actually incremental repricing for AI. So for rule based, you got to set that up yourself. Like what happens if when you get the buy box when you're competing with someone. But AI will take all those considerations, take all those variables, and it would do a price prediction depending on whether you prefer sales, which is let's say on our interface will be the AI sales maximizer, usually used for let's say liquidation strategies, usually used for products that you have excess stock on, or profits, and we call that the AI profit maximizer. And for the AI profit maximizer, it's going to focus more on profits, so it's going to raise your price a lot more and a lot faster, and it's going to keep you more towards your more. It's going to move towards your max prices, whereas the AI sales maximizer is going to keep you more close toward your min price in an attempt to keep the buy box. So with the AI, how does it happen, right? Like, what's the AI like? How does it work? So just to explain to everybody what the AI works is, it's based on a central model. So earlier we talked about the different variables, and we have a centralized model which takes into all those considerations. So we have a team of in-house AI engineers who've been doing this for years and years, and many of them has been with us for 10 years. So they know repricing extremely well. So it's based on a centralized learning model of the entire Amazon, all the different listings, using a very large sample size, using billions of data points to make these predictions. And then it takes part of that central learning model, and then there's an account-based learning model. And this is actually that specific listing. So what's the main difference between AI and rule-based, algorithmic rule-based is with AI repricing, there's machine learning. So it would actually learn that specific ASIN. And if there's new competitors that jump in, if there's people who leave, it would reprice a lot more. Instead of just following a set of rules that you set, it would actually go up by different amounts to get you that sweet spot for the buy box. So it would either raise your price, it might lower your price, or it might keep the price around the same if you're using the AI repricing. So just to talk a little bit more about the benefits of using AI, and a lot of customers, they might be new and you might not know the listing extremely well. Maybe you've been in the business for a couple of months, and the learning curve is just much lower now to use the AI. So the 5 main benefits of using AI, you can definitely have. It's much faster to set up. It's much faster to set up because instead of selecting competitors, who the competitors are, instead of having to select what happens with the specific amount, a percentage or amount that it goes by, it does it automatically for you. Yeah. And then definitely you can get a higher buy box win percentage when you're using AI because it aggressively goes for the buy box. And then talking about comparing against, let's say, the Amazon repricer you talked, yes, it kind of goes down. With repricing it, incrementally reprice up. So incrementally by different amounts. So it doesn't always go the same. It goes by different amounts depending on the condition, the market condition. And then it can raise the buy box price as well. And it's much more competitive because there's a machine learning algorithm that continuously learns from the unique ASIN So you're going to see for AI, it's going to reprice a lot more, and it's a lot easier to set up.
Gotcha. And speaking of setup, that's kind of one of the things before we jump into the third strategy. We've covered rule based, we've covered AI. I think we're coming in for a landing on the kind of what AI is and the benefits of it. We're going to talk about conditional repricing in a moment, and that's the exciting new features. But let's talk about setup for just a second because we haven't hit that yet. What can you reasonably expect? You talk about putting in the minimum and maximum for every ASIN. That's a one-time thing, and you can adjust those over time, possibly. But it sounds to me like with AI, it's going to be a faster process than it would be if you went rule-based. That sounds more tedious. So I'm
Yes,
quickly leaning
yes.
towards if I just have those two options, I'd be going AI. Like it's a clear champion in my opinion. But what is the setup process like? How long does it take? Let's say I've never used a repricer. Do I need to carve out 3 days to do this, or what's the reality here?
Okay. For the setup, this is how it works. First, once you sign up, you're going to get an email to activate your account, where then you link. It's going to send you an email once you sign up on the BQool page, and then it's going to pull in all of your listings from Amazon. So that takes typically 6 to 12 hours, depending on the number of listings you have. If it's more than that, you can contact our support. We also have live chat as well. Then once you have the listings, you just have to set up the mins and max for those. So, there's several different ways you can set this up. Like you can insert it into here manually. That's one way to do it. You could also use a bulk action to set your min and max prices for up to, let's say, 500 listings at once. Or you could actually upload a file as well. So if you're coming in from another repricer, you could actually download the listings, put it into the file. And then one of the interesting things that we have, which is a little bit different, is you could also use the mins and max that you set up in Inventory Lab. Yeah, so Inventory Lab's a strategic partner for us. You could also pull their cost in as well. Yeah, so you could actually pull their costs in, and this is just in our settings here, where you're able to just toggle on, and then you could have Inventory Lab integration that pulls in. So the whole process, usually, it would take you maybe a couple of hours for the very first time, depending on the number of listings you have. Let's say if
Sure.
you have 100 listings, you're going to pull in all those listings in. And if you set this up, we will pull in the listings from the cost from Inventory Lab every 12 hours. Yeah, so that's about 12 hours. And then also for all the listings that have come in. So, it takes about a day for all the data to come in. And then once you've connected to the API, the Amazon API. And then after that, you just have to set your mins and maxes. That's pretty quick. It could take me, right now I'm just showing the audience, like, let's say for this product, I got it for $5. I'm selling it for 10 and then 20. And then I just have to set a rule. Let's say I use the AI equalizer, and then I just have to set that up, and then I'm done. Yeah. So that's very, very quick. Like you can set up one listing in less than a minute. Yeah. So the whole process, it takes about 1 to 2 days. Yeah, but we do offer the onboarding webinar as well. Yeah, so make sure to join the onboarding webinar, which is free for our users, and you're able to join, and you can get a quick start. Yeah, and you can fast track your usage. You can know how to use the software a lot better, a lot faster. So typically about a day to answer your question.
Very good. Yeah, I just wanted to give people a general idea. I didn't want them to be intimidated. I don't want anyone to be intimidated by this process. It really can save you a lot of time and help you win the buy box, move your inventory more quickly. And yeah, don't be intimidated by that. If any of this, and this I realize too, as I've hosted a lot of podcast episodes, this is an unusual episode. It kind of feels more like a webinar almost, but it's content I wanted to get out there. We have so many successful and up and coming replens sellers in our community, and we get a lot of questions about repricers. So I just want to consistently be getting this message out and kind of dive into the weeds a little bit, just so you've heard the terminology, you're not intimidated by it. But there's great training, and one thing that you guys are very well recognized for in our community is the level of support that you provide to your users. You're very responsive and professional and helpful, and so if we can just encourage people to start the process, that's kind of my goal from this, but we're doing great. I want to get into conditional repricing next, if that's okay, unless you had anything else you wanted to cover on the first two, the rule-based, the AI. I think we're ready to transition.
Oh, absolutely. Like conditional repricing, like that's the main topic of today's webinar. And this is so useful because there's so many customers who follow the Replens business. And with conditional repricing, this is a new feature because Amazon is a very competitive place. And it's not fair, but Amazon has raised some of the Amazon fees, recently again, right? So becoming more competitive. So you need to have new tools. You need to have new weapons in your arsenal. Yeah, so to definitely be able to face those new issues, the main benefit for using conditional repricing is that it's going to save you time, and you'll be able to sell faster, and you'll also be able to make more profits. Yeah. So what exactly is conditional repricing? Right. Let me just share with you my screen here, bring us back to this interface here, and the conditional repricing is actually the third tab here. And earlier we had rule base, and then as we upgraded, as we continued to improve, we got the AI, and then now we have conditional repricing. And the reason we have this is because there's certain new rules. Amazon comes up with new rules. Like for example, on April 15th, that's 2 weeks ago, Amazon made some news announcement that for the products that's been in your inventory longer than 6 months, that's not selling, they're going to discharge your products without your consent. So you have to actually opt out of that. And also for products that are in long-term storage, that are incurring long-term storage fees, they'll also discharge those products as well. So you got to be careful. You have to opt out of that. And then, so given these inventory constraints, one of the things people, because you get charged a lot by Amazon, like I see 15%, 50%, people, a lot of times it's higher than that. Some people, they pay for advertising as well, maybe another 15%, just to get their products shown. So, we do advertise people to go using arbitrage or retail arbitrage when, you're just starting out. And basically, like, we want to give you the tools, like you can switch to different rules. So, earlier we have the AI, and one of the things that people, said that, hey, your AI, when I use the sales maximizer, it brings me down to my min price a lot. And it's supposed to do that because one of the important factors is price. So it's going to bring you down to your min price in an attempt to sell more of that product to get the buy box for you. But you know what? Now you can raise the price. Yeah, you don't have to stay there. You don't have to, you can switch the rule depending on your available quantity. So let's say you had a product and originally you had 20 available units. And then now you only have 5 units left. And you have to go out and you have to go and replenish those products. It's going to take you some time to do that. And then, so while you are transitioning, while you're trying to get those products into Amazon, which is going to take some time, then you can actually switch it. You can switch it to a profit-driven rule. You could actually get more profits by switching, let's say, from the AI equalizer. Now you can switch to AI profit maximizer. So you can slow down your sales while you go out and you replenish the product. You can actually take advantage now of both AI and rule base. For a lot of people who swear by using rule base because it can match the buy box price. This is for you as well, because now you could actually match the buy box prices depending on the market conditions. You're able to change your prices automatically up as well. Yeah, so there's advanced automation. So you can switch between the different rules based on certain market conditions. So if something happens, then the repricer will react accordingly based on what you have set up before.
And so you can set this up as an automated rule, Samuel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can say by using conditional repricing, which is the third strategy in our presentation today, trying to do our best to keep everybody who's just listening up to speed here. With conditional repricing, you could set a rule that says, hey, if my inventory gets low on an ASIN, we change to a more aggressively higher price, not aggressive, but less aggressive, higher priced strategy. Well, I want my price to drift up when the inventory gets a little low. Give me some time to get the inventory back in. And then once I'm restocked, then we switch back to a more aggressive pricing strategy. That can all be automated with conditional repricing. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct. Yeah. And what's more is you're also able, let's say for a product that you're not selling well, you now have the option to you can switch to a different rule. So the reverse is true as well. Maybe you had it on a more profit driven rule, but now you can, based on if the product isn't selling as well as you anticipated, you can actually now set the condition and it can change to a more aggressive rule as well. Yeah. So
So automatically
yes,
condition
automatically.
could it, so it's a condition I could say, hey, if this product hasn't sold in say 40 days, I want to go to if this ASIN hasn't sold a single unit in 40 days, I want to get a little more aggressive at dropping the price. Is that something I can set up in the conditional repricing across all my ASINs?
Yes, yes, that's what you
That's
can do.
beautiful.
And
And that's huge. That's huge.
yes,
Because that's one of the things we encourage, just to not to take over the presentation, but, as a Replens seller, one of the more painful parts of keeping track of your business is, as ASINs, they can be great for a while, then they start being not great, and you wanna get rid of them as soon as you can without having to go in and change your repricer. Well, the conditional repricing can be set up to do that for you automatically. Say at 30 days or 40 days. If it's just not moving, all right, let's get aggressive and get this thing out of here.
yes.
That's beautiful.
Uh, yeah, so there are actually three default rules that are recommended, but it's not limited to these type of items that I'm about to mention. So let me just share my screen here again. We're back into the same interface, and we have total of 5 different conditional rules. And you can see on the interface, you can choose how to auto switch your rules. So for the three default ones, we have inventory age condition. And that's what you just mentioned there. If the product is slow moving, maybe it's an individual product, it could be a perishable item. Like, for example, here I have a Victoria's Secret tropical product here, and this might have an expiry date. And then, so I might need to, lower my prices, my ROI when that happens. So you could actually use the inventory age condition for those type of products, for perishable items as well. And then for items that are fast moving, for example, let's say you have some fast moving inventory, then you could use the sell through rate condition. And this is related to also your IPI score. So if you need to make space for sending products into Amazon, then this one is for you. For typically fast moving products, then you can see the sell through rate, and we have more trainings about this as well. And then there's also days of supply. Days of supply. Let's say it's a large volume product, and it might be a Replens product where you typically sell a certain number of units. So if for the days of supply, this actually pulls in from the Amazon reports of how many products do you have remaining for you to sell, and then you could make the adjustments according to that. Then we have 2 advanced conditions. It's both for FBA and FBM. Of course, FBA, there's going to be a lot more because it's pulling in from your FBA data. That's your inventory that's in Amazon as well. But we also have something for FBM as well. So just to quickly dive in and just give you a concept about this, about the different conditions. And then I'm just going to show the example here. And basically there's 3 different categories of conditions that you can set. And these 3 categories, I'm going to just show them how it works. So you can actually add them. You could have a main condition, and then you could add another condition underneath it as a child condition. And there's also or. So there's and or. Or and is if you want this condition plus something else, and then or is this condition or another condition. So giving you some example here, we have 18 different choices you can select. And the way to divide them is the 3 different categories. So one category is, let's say, inventory. So the one category, you have the inventory age. You also have the estimated excess, the estimated long-term storage fees, and you also have estimated long-term storage units. And then the second category here is related to your sales and the available units. So you have the units sold percentage, sales, also your sales percentage, also the available quantity. And then the third one is price related. So the price related, it might be, this would be the buy box wins. You can pick the listings at the min price, listings at the max price, and listings at the lowest price, and also the listings that did not win the buy box. So those are the three main categories. And of course, there's a lot of real life scenarios that I can share with you.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful, just to start talking through, specific ASINs and inventory levels and, how can a repricer with conditional repricing, what can we begin to do? Give us some scenarios. I think that's a good transition.
Okay, so let's go into one scenario that we first talked about. Let's say for your inventory. Okay, so we talked about inventory, and let's say you have some dead stock. So it hasn't sold for 90 days. Like when you first got them, let's say I got the seasoning, like a branded, for one of the retailers, branded seasoning here. And, I don't know, I got maybe like 80 of them. But there's an expiry date on this, and it's going to expire maybe in 6 months. Yeah. So what I should do, I would go into the conditional repricing. I'm just going to start a new tab here. I'm going to share my screen here, just to show everybody of how do we actually do this. And in the window here, when I pick conditional repricing, we'll go to inventory age. And then in the inventory age, when I go in, I'm going to call this liquidation, because I'm trying to sell this product out, and I want to. It hasn't sold in the last 90 days. So here we have all of these defaults already set up, and then they've been paired with our default AI rules as well. So from 0 to 30 days, I'm on the profit maximizer rules. I'm trying to get a large volume. I'm trying to get the most profits I can. And then from 61 to 90 days, I'm still at AI equalizer. But let's say after 91 days here, I put it at AI sales booster. And what's more is I can actually go in and I can set it, I can reset my ROI. Maybe I was looking for a 45% ROI, but after 91 days, I can set the ROI maybe at 25%. I'm willing to sell it off at 25% because my product might expire. So you can do that for the inventory age condition. And some of the common inventory issues that we see a lot of customers have is they might have excess inventory. They might have products that have dead stock that's not moving. What I mentioned, maybe after 3 months, and they got too much of it. And there also might be high storage costs. And one of the questions I want to ask you, Jim, for excess units, which is going to give you long-term storage fees, typically for sellers, for let's say larger sellers that you talk to, typically like how much money do you think people are willing, like a seven-figure seller, maybe an eight-figure seller, how much are they willing to pay for the long-term storage fees?
Oh, we teach everyone just to avoid them. You've got to do what you can to avoid them. You're better off bringing the stuff back and selling it on eBay than you are absorbing the long-term storage fees. So it is,
Yeah.
if you just let your stuff sit there till it sells and don't really pay attention, you can wind up just getting hammered with huge bills. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars for a seven-figure seller potentially if you've got some of your inventory that's just sitting there. So it makes a lot of sense to have these rules set up that you start getting a little nervous around 45, 60 days. And now we're taking some serious action, somewhere in that window or shortly thereafter. And we want to get aggressive with our prices and move that stuff out. Yeah, because long-term storage fees are no joke, and they keep getting worse. As far as Amazon is really putting a premium value on their storage space, far more than they used to, which is one of the reasons, for example, that we encourage very few sellers to sell books. For example, that used to be a great model. You could let a book sit there for a year and a half, and when it's sold, and you make your $10, you're happy. Well, now you've gotten hammered so much with long-term storage fees that you got to sell a book for, $30 to even make a profit now because it's sat there and you've been hit with fees. So yeah, you've got to pay attention to it. So one of the things we teach Replens sellers is, start getting a little nervous around 45 to 60 days and get that thing moving. And with the repricer that's paying attention to that for you and can slowly get aggressive when necessary, that's invaluable.
Yeah, so you're right. You don't recommend people to incur these long-term storage fees. So probably before that happens, maybe at the 3 months cutoff line, you might go into the product. You might sell it for maybe you might change the prices. You might lower the mid prices in order to sell it out, and then you might have to go to a different listing after that. You might have to find other products to sell as well. And with our repricer, there's settings where you can find if there's any excess units, if it's over a certain amount, and you can put it into a more of a liquidation strategy into place if you want. But what I really wanted to talk to you today is actually, which conditional rules are actually suitable for the replen business. And Chip, maybe you could tell us a little bit, what kind of products are replens typically? Do you go out and you buy a huge amount of them, or
Right.
are these stable products that you could go out and they might not be clearance items. They might be items that you could buy every day.
Yeah, and I would imagine most people that are listening to this episode, they're fairly familiar with the Replens model or they're starting to learn it at least, and it could be anything. Does it have a good looking Keepa chart, which means I can expect reasonably to sell a handful per month. In many of our ASINs, for example, as long as I'm selling 2 or 3 a month at somewhere around $5 profit, 40 to 60% minimum net ROI, I'm pretty happy with that. But the tide can quickly turn on any of those, 1,500 ASINs. If another seller comes in and dumps 200 into inventory at Amazon, and suddenly, I'm sitting there with we never have more than about a month's worth of inventory on any ASIN. But sometimes that month's worth can turn into 6 months worth if someone comes in and kind of undercuts us. So having a repricer that pays attention to that is important for us because we don't want anything sitting there that long.
Exactly. So for the Replens products, based on the attributes of the Replens products, basically, like if you keep it for maybe a month's worth of stock, then you have to pay attention if it doesn't win the buy box. So one of the things you could use with conditional repricing is you can, and let me just show you this. You can set this up. I'm just going to open up a new tab here with conditional repricing. And then I'm selecting the FBA advanced conditions, and I'm going to call this the replen number one. Okay, this is replen number one here.
You're naming the rule,
Yeah,
right?
I'm naming the rule. Yeah, I'm naming the rule after I selected conditional repricing here. And then
Right.
I can go into the when condition, and this is the main condition, and I can actually pick, the listings that are not in the buy box. But typically, we don't want you to sell at the lowest prices because that's not what we want to do. We want you to get a fair price for your products. So we're going to have the main condition, which is the listing not in the buy box. And then we're going to add another condition here. And this is going to be the units sold. Okay, so the combination is the listing that does not win the buy box plus the units sold. So let's say typically, maybe in 1 month, maybe on average, you sell maybe 30 units of that product. And we know that the units sold in the last 7 days is actually less than, let's say, 3 units. So on average, you should be selling maybe 7 to 8 units per week, but you're actually selling less than 3. And so then in this specific, scenario, I might move it to the buy box price. I can actually move the product. I can move it to, near the buy box price. That's something that I might, start out with. Now, if I still don't win the buy box, now I'm going to the next when. Okay, so you can actually set up as different whens. But now again, I go to the when condition, and then I'm setting here again the listings that don't win the buy box. And then now I'm setting this, when I haven't won the buy box in the last 7 days. Okay. So if I'm not winning the buy box, it's very likely I'm not getting any sales in this specific case. Because if and of course, I want to add the other condition, the units sold the last 7 days. Again, it's less than maybe 2 units. Then I know I might need to go in there. I might need to make some adjustments. So I can what can I do? I can go in. I can change the rule. I can make it to a more aggressive rule. I can make it to like a AI sales booster, for example. I can start out with that. I could also change my min price too. Like originally, maybe for that replen product, I wanted 35%, but now I'm going to do 25%. Okay, I'm going to do 25%. And then I'm going to see if that changes. And then there's also a or condition. This is the last or condition, which is at the bottom. And for all conditional repricing, we always have this at the bottom. This is when none of the above conditions are met. When none of them met, what do you change it to? So because it's a replen product, I'm going to change it to the AI equalizer because I do want to get an equal amount of sales and profits. So it's quite flexible. So this is one of the strategies that we would recommend for Replens customers when you check your listings not in the buy box.
Yeah, I love it. And let me just recap and re-say what you just said because I want to make sure I understand it, which I'm pretty sure I followed you completely. And for the listener's sake too, if you've got a replan and it's selling at a certain pace, you want to have a repricer that notices when that pace slows significantly. You can define what that means. But in your example, instead of selling 30 a month, we're on pace to maybe only sell 4 or 5 this month. Well, let's get a little more aggressive. And if that still doesn't help us win the buy box, let's get a little more aggressive even. And if that still doesn't work, well, now we're going in with the big guns and we're going to try to, get as aggressive as we can. I love that kind of tiered conditional thought process of you don't have to monitor this. That's really what this is. If you put some time and effort and energy into setting your repricer up on the ASINs as you introduce them into your arsenal, you're going to play very naturally through the process of maximizing your revenue with that ASIN until it's not a good ASIN at some point, which could happen and might and likely will for a good portion of them. And you're going to know how to handle it very well and make the most money you can and then get out from underneath it before you start getting hit with long-term storage fees. That's the summary. But I love the conditional multiple levels of condition. This rule and this rule and this one. If none of that works, okay, or we could do this. That's great.
Yeah, and I want to show you another example for replens as well. You can mix and match, different strategies depending on what's important for you. But what we've seen, a lot of people they care when their available quantity is a certain amount, and when the available quantity is a certain amount, they want to do something, and also the number of units that are sold. So let me just show you another example here, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to go back to this, and I'm going to just restart this in the when condition now I'm going to pick available quantity. Available quantity. For the available quantity, this is how much quantity you have. And let's say I started out with greater than 20. Okay, greater with 20 units. And the units sold the last 7 days, maybe it was greater than 10. So maybe in a month, you usually sell 20. But right now, the available quantity, you know that you got 20 and you know you have sold greater than 10, then you might need to raise your prices, right? Because you need to go out and you need to go replenish that product. So then we could actually go to your price and you could actually put it to your max price if you want. You could actually you could also go to your price and you could actually plus like 5 cents, or you could actually add a percentage as well too, because you know that the available quantity is 20 and you've already sold 10 in the last 7 days. So you want to slow down your sales while you go out and replenish it. Because one of the things that's really interesting when I talk to a lot of big sellers is if their product is selling well, they want to go out and replenish those products. They want to go and get more of those units in so they can get even more sales from them. And then in the past, they might just leave it, right? But now you have the option that you can now actually, you could change it to AI profit maximizer. So you could actually slow down the sales while you go out and replenish it and you get a better profit for it. You could also change your prices. You could also do both. You could actually set your ROI even higher. Maybe it was 35%. Now you're looking at 50% under this type of condition. And then, of course, I can add another when condition. And this, again, I could use available quantity to set this up. And in this case, I can have a different scenario where my available quantity, now it's now I have less than 10 units. And again, the condition I add underneath is the units sold. And I have less than 10 units. And then the units sold the last 7 days has been maybe I've sold 10 of them. So I know I'm going to run out in a week. So now, again, I can reset my prices to a higher price as well. I can do the same thing over. And I could repeat this depending on how many available quantity I have of this unit. And then I can put the subcondition, the units sold. In this way, depending on my available units, I can automate changing my rule, and I can also automate changing my prices.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And because hitting 0 is a bad scenario for many reasons, especially, there's it's kind of painful to see one of your hot ASINs just fly off the shelf, and you could have charged more money, especially as you started getting less and less inventory on that ASIN. You would have liked to have been able to raise your price. It's about automating that. There's benefits to it. It actually improves your it can improve your IPI, your account health score, to keep your best ASINs in stock. So one of the ways to slow down the sales volume is to raise the price as your inventory levels start to deplete. It's a phenomenal, yeah, it's a phenomenal strategy, and a lot of people do it manually, naturally. It's like, oh, I've only got 5 of these left. I'm going to raise the price so I can keep them. Well, you can set that up and do it automatically with the conditional repricer. Beautiful, beautiful. I love the great
Yeah.
scenarios.
There's going to be different scenarios. I think the audience, you guys, you get the picture. There's different conditions you can set. It could be your inventory. It could be if this product keeps on being at your min price, like it's been at your min price for maybe 2 weeks, and you're still not getting any sales for that. Then you might need to make some adjustments. It could be the available quantity as well. So it's really that umbrella framework about the inventory, about your sales, and then also about the price. You can have so many different combinations for that.
Right. You can really distinguish yourself too from anyone else who's using a repricer. You can kind of get a man. Is like my repricer is a little smarter than the, the other. This is the average. Set my minimum, set my maximum. Do your thing type of repricer. You can put a lot of rules in there that really do start to give you a big advantage. So, all right, this has been a good hour. We're coming up on an hour or so worth of content. What are the things we want to hit to make sure that people understand this? Like, hey, is this expensive? What can people expect, as far as pricing goes? And is this a separate offer from BQool's typical offers for reprice settings? How does that work?
Regarding the pricing for the conditional repricing, it starts at our $50 and above plan. So let's say you're on a plan that already have AI listings. We include it in that plan. So we're not charging people extra for this, but yeah, it starts at the $50 plan, and you can start using that. You'll be able to switch between all the different AI rules just using the conditional repricing. Yeah, so it's at a price point which is affordable for most people. Yeah, and definitely main benefits, of course, is you can do the advanced automation, and it could save you a lot of time. Because just talking a little bit about the time that it saves. Typically, talking about the example, typically you need to go into the listings that didn't win the buy box, and then you might need to go through them and you need to make adjustments, or you need to manually reset them to a different rule. And you have to check every 5 days, every 7 days, every 14 days. You got to check that yourself. You also have to check, okay, maybe I didn't sell units for this. You need to go in and then you have to adjust that. Also, the time you save. Let's say a product is selling really well and you need to go back into the system and you need to make the minor adjustments. Typical in a week, maybe 14 days, you find out you don't have enough stock. But now these things are now automated. Yeah, so that's going to save you a lot of time. Yeah, from before having to check yourself and then making those adjustments afterwards.
Yeah, fantastic. It's one of those tools that pays for itself very quickly if you set it up and use it properly. And I love that you're just rolling this. Anyone who's at the AI user level, the $50 a month level, conditional repricing it's there, ready for them to use. That's fantastic. So is it hard to transition? Let's say someone's using another repricer. We talked about people who have never used one and what it feels like to set up for the first time. And you did talk a little bit about this. You can export your settings, your minimums and your maximums from whatever tool you're using now and pull those over. If you're in inventory lab, you've kind of got a head start too, which is one of the tools that a lot of our Replens sellers use, inventory lab. But how complicated is it to go from one repricer to another?
I think it takes some time to transition, but it's not complicated. Like the steps to do that is first you would sign up. The first step is sign up. It's the first step. Sign up to the BQool Repricing Central. And then after you signed up, if you're using another repricer, then you can first download their listings and then you can put it into the template. Then you can upload that into the system. And then don't start your repricing just yet. Yeah. So once you have set the min and max and the rule for your ASIN, then you can go and pause the other repricer. And then you can enable the repricing for your listings in BQool. Yeah. So we don't recommend enabling 2 or more repricers at the same time because then there might be some conflict. You don't want to have your foot in 2 ships going different directions. Yeah. So
Right.
definitely use the BQool Repricer and you can set up the rules, and then you can start repricing. Yeah, so that's kind of the steps.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, yeah, this has been very informative and instructive. I've learned a couple things. I'm excited to dive into some of the conditional settings that we have available to us in our account because, like I mentioned, this is what we're using. This is the tool we use. So I'm super excited about this, and thank you. I know you guys worked on it a long time, and this really sets you guys ahead of the pack from my vantage point on, especially in some of the relationship you have with Amazon, some of the new changes that are coming. Maybe we should address that. Some of the repricers are going to be struggling with some of the changes that Amazon has coming down the pike. Is that something you're able to talk about? We've talked about it offline, but what can you share with us on that front without throwing anyone under the bus? Obviously, you have competitors, but how are you guys positioned to handle some of the coming tech changes at Amazon?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked that because we're fully prepared for the transition. And what's happening behind the scenes right now is there's been a marketplace API called the MWS API that's been in place for more than 10 years. But one of our advantages is that we've been preparing for this since last year. Yeah, because they push back the time for this. Yeah, so basically, we're in the Marketplace Development Council, and so we get the new updates earlier than other people. What's happening is now it's going to transition to a much smoother, a higher quality service for users with less hiccups, and that's called the SP API. And this is required by July 31st. The stands for selling partner. And so because we're ready for this, we've been transitioning. It takes a lot of effort to transition from a previous API to a new API. So we're kind of ahead of the pack. And other software, they may have issues. Yeah, because they might be quite new. They're relatively new, and they might not have a large team of engineers. Yeah, so we strongly recommend you to use a tool that is supported by Amazon officially. That's part of the invite only Amazon Development Council. And we are ready because in July 31st, some of those data is going to stop working. And then by the end of this year, yeah, like they have to transition to the new standard. Otherwise, you won't be able to reprice.
Gotcha.
We also use the AWS servers as well. Secure, is scalable. It's more expensive, but it gives better integration as well. Yeah, we are ready. We're also one of the most affordable AI plus algorithmic rule plus now conditional repricing. So you could use both algorithmic rules and AI, and you could also switch between the rules as well. Yeah, so yeah, we're prepared for this transition.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure and quickly mention that because I know everybody in our group, even among our coaches and our leaders, just full transparency, we've got people with different preferences and things. But the list of repricers that works, even if you love it, they may not be working as well here towards the summer and towards the end of the year, depending on how up to date they are with their relationship with Amazon and some of the technical behind the scene things that you guys have had to to deal with. So you're prepared for that. Well, let's talk about the offer that you have for our audience. We've set up a unique link. I mentioned it in the introduction as well, but silentgym.com/repricer. What offer do we have for folks there? Why should they use that?
Yeah, we have a very special offer, and this is for your community, Jim. Yeah, it's because of you. There's exclusive link which gives you 30-day free trial. So that's like valued at $100, and that's going to give you 1,000 AI listings and also CR listings. You can use it interchangeably, both AI and also CR. We call them. And then yeah, you could use a link, try it out for a month. There's no credit card that's needed, and then make sure to use Jim's link. You got to use Jim's link to make sure it works. So I'm just going to share my screen just to show you how to access that. And then for the people who are seeing this, so you can go to, this is silentgym.com and /repricer, as Jim mentioned. And then you're going to see this exclusive deal here. And then you can make sure to go to select your product and then select Repricing Central. And then you could just put in your email and also your password, and you can sign up for a free account. And
Nice.
that's going to give you $100 value to try out the repricer.
Yeah, and you get the CR, the new conditional repricing. You can play around with it and see the impact that it has on your account. And we hear all the time from people when they first turn on a good repricer, like, wow, it ignites their business. It gets things, it automates so many little tedious tasks and lets you kind of focus on the other parts of your business that you should be focused on, and it increases your sales at better net margins. That's the whole point. So yeah,
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
excited to roll this into the community.
That's fantastic, Jim. And thank you for having us on your show today. We look forward to deeper collaboration and our friendship. And also, we'll continue to roll out great new features. And for all the audience, we have this recorded on YouTube as well. So if you're more of a visual learner, you can check out the YouTube video to see how the software functions and how we did all those settings as well.
Yeah, and good job today. It wasn't easy being on an audio only podcast trying to do a bit of a software demo, but I think we pulled off, at least created some concepts in people's minds of what's possible and the different strategies they can use with a repricer, why a good one is so much better than kind of a here's my minimum, here's my maximum, help me win the buy box type of repricer. You guys have a lot going on behind the scenes that gives the seller a big advantage. And I know there's many users in our community, many of the big success stories that people have heard on this podcast who swear by using a good repricer, many of them using BQool. And it's an honor to be partnered up with you guys. So great job, buddy. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Jim. Yours as well. We'll see you in the next webinar.
Sounds great, buddy. Appreciate it.